Hello, everybody, and welcome to week 2. Here I am, and I am trying a new format. In that new format, I am going to be providing video instruction to you. Sometimes you'll see my face, but in this case, with this first video, you'll just hear my voice. And I hope that the quality is good for you. Here is just a little bit of information in case you have not been able to get a hold of me. There is my email, clanning@squimschools.org. Please let me know your status. How are you doing? How can I help? What are you working on? What are you struggling with? And that's going to go ahead and just make things a lot easier for all of us. My goal is to help you. My goal is to tailor my instruction to what it is that you students need and your families need. But please remember, the other thing that is very, very important is I need you to be sure that you take care of yourself and that you take care of your family. And do that first. School will be here when we come back. Okay? And so this is the time for you to take care of yourself and your family. Now, if you do have time to get to the work that we provided for you, then this video instruction and the work that I have handed out for this first 2 weeks is going to go ahead and be helpful for you to get through. Today we're looking at steady beat and rhythm, and we're primarily only looking at steady beat. We'll talk a little bit about this in this first video, but in these first 2 videos, we're looking at the steady beat and rhythm, but most of the time in this upcoming video that we're going to watch and that I'm preparing for you, that's what we're talking about is steady beat. Here are our learning targets. I can describe how steady beat and rhythm connect, and I can explain what rhythm is. So what is steady beat, and how does it apply to rhythm? And then can I connect? I can make connections to my recorder karate pieces, and I can correctly begin to include my counting and note names into my pieces. And we'll go ahead and do that in the second video. You'll see me actually, just like in class, I'll put a piece of music up on the projector. In this case, it'll be in the slideshow, and you'll be able to see how I apply my understanding of steady beat and rhythm to putting in my counting. Our essential questions deal with that as well. How do I use steady beat to figure out the correct way to play a certain rhythm in a piece? And how can I apply this to learning my first recorder karate piece? So before we get into this slide, let's go ahead and get a blank. Excuse me for a second. Let's go ahead and get a blank whiteboard. And on that blank whiteboard, let's go ahead and let's ask ourselves, what is steady beat? There are 2 parts to that word, and the first is steady and the second is beat. And in those 2 parts, there are some things that we want to pay attention to. First, steady. It means it's continuous. And I'll go ahead and just abbreviate. It's continuous. The other thing is that it never changes. In our second part, beat, we have that there is a feel. And in that feel, we call that in music, we call that a pulse. So steady beat, it's continuous, it never changes, and it's a continuous, never changing feel or pulse. If you're having a hard time with this word pulse, it's best to think about it as it relates to this, and that is your heart. What we know about our heart is that the faster, if we go ahead and we create a continuum here, the faster we go, okay, with our heart, with our pulse. If we have a heart rate that goes fast, like that, okay, that's going to mean we're going to have a faster beat as well. So faster pulse, faster beat. However, if we have a pulse that is slower, okay, and one thing I neglected to say here, and I should have, is that faster would mean a higher pulse as well. So faster is higher. Well, if faster means a higher pulse, then slower would mean a lower pulse. Let me go ahead and rewrite that. It's kind of sloppy. Lower. Okay? So faster means a faster beat. Lower would mean a slower beat. Go ahead and do this in slower. Okay? And so if we think about how the idea of steady beat connects to how we understand our heart rate, then that helps us understand the idea that beat must be continuous, it must be never changing, and it also must be a continuous, never changing feel. I hope that was helpful. And so let's go back to our picture here. So what we're asking ourselves is, which of these pictures would be a good way of explaining or demonstrating steady beat? And what we're looking for is if we were to hear it, not necessarily if we were to see it, but if we were to hear it, would it sound like steady beat? So here is steady beat for you. So that would be a slower beat. If I had a faster beat, it would sound like this. Okay, and so a faster beat is going to be a faster sounding pulse, and then a slower beat is going to be a slower sounding pulse. So we need to ask ourselves those three things. And let's go ahead and put those three things in here so we can just go ahead and review real quickly. Remember, a steady recurring pulse. So we have steady, recurring, pulse. So I want to give you some time to look at these pictures. And let's ask ourselves, which of these pictures would be a good demonstration of that steady beat? So let's look at the first picture. The first picture is a mooing cow. So a mooing cow would sound very much like moo, moo. Okay. At first, it might seem that it is a steady recurring pulse, but it's not. It goes up, it starts slow, it goes a little faster in the middle, and then it goes back down. And so this would not be a good example of a steady recurring pulse. The popping toaster, that sounds like a good idea. However, the problem with the popping toaster is that the popping toaster is only from time to time. It's not again and again and again. It's not continuous. And so that would also not be an example of a steady recurring pulse. Our clapping hands, we just demonstrated that. There it is again. If I were to go slower, there it is. Or if I could go faster. Okay, that is a steady, reoccurring, continuous pulse. And so the answer to that would be yes, absolutely. That is an example of steady beat. But because it's not a steady, continuous pulse, video games would not be one, nor would a flashing camera. Our telephone ringing, telephones, we have different short and long sounds. We have da 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 da, da 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 da, or da 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 da, or who knows what you have on your ringtone for your cell phone or your parent's cell phone. That would not be an example of steady recurring pulse. But a ticking watch, tick, 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 that is continuous, and so that is also an example of a steady recurring pulse. A pecking woodpecker. At first, I had said yes, this is an example of steady recurring pulse, but I'm going to let you decide. Am I right on that? Does this make sense that this should be a steady recurring pulse? What is the problem that you might find with that? And so think about that, and maybe you can think about why I'm having questions about that now that I've gone back through. The jump rope. Same idea as the woodpecker, and the idea is that when I first thought about it, I thought, okay, you have a continuous sounding jump rope that sounds just like this, and there is a beat, but what happens if you have shorter and longer and shorter and longer and shorter and longer sounds? Well, that doesn't become a steady beat anymore. That's something else. So again, there's a question mark that I have for that one as well. How about bouncing ball? Bouncing ball, no. Bouncing ball, the problem with the bouncing ball is it starts up high and you have very continuous sounds, but then as the ball gets closer to the ground, until it stops. That's not a steady recurring pulse. However, that is an example of something else. So if we look over what we have here, we could say that each of these ones that are not steady recurring pulses, they're examples of something else. And our question is going to be for us in this next lecture that we have is, what is that? It can't be steady beat, but it's got to be something else. And so tune in next time in this next video when we look at what is that next thing. Okay? Well, with that, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you very much for taking time to watch and listen. Please go ahead and work on your songs and look at the next video. If you're ready, you can just go to the next video and you can learn more about what that mystery thing was that we also were supposed to talk about.